If you love to be scared to death with a good horror movie or simply appreciate the art of film, you won't want to miss the next few minutes. You've found Uniquely Bristol, the show that highlights the hidden treasures and small town values of Bristol. This show is produced by the Bristol Development Authority. Since the early 60s, the East Coast connection to Hollywood has been the Witch's Dungeon Classic Movie Museum, run by Cordtlandt Hull. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down and discussing the movie museum with Cortland.
One of the things that I find just amazing is that growing up outside of Kansas City, the highlight of my week was waiting for Saturday night when Chiller Theater came on. But you started this when you were 13 years old.
Well, that's right, but I also had the help of my great uncle, which was actor Henry Hull, who was the very first movie werewolf, The Werewolf of London, in 1935. And through him, I got to meet some wonderful makeup artists, such as John Chambers, who did this makeup of Roddy McDowall from Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes, and others.
Now, Henry wasn't the only kind of movie star. You also had, I think it's an aunt or a cousin?
Yes, my great aunt was Josephine Hull, which was his sister-in-law. And so you can actually say that in my family, my uncle was a werewolf and my aunt was a murderess.
Well, we're lucky this is not being taped during the full moon. So I'm trying to think, I know that you started this as a child, and I used to love to make the Aurora models, the monster models, and I know that inspired you. So was it the models? Was it your uncle? I mean, where's the passion come from?
It was a number of different things. I was fascinated by the makeup in the films to begin with, and my great uncle, he was also a wonderful makeup artist in his own right on stage. So he kind of encouraged me with that, but it was like what you did. I built the little Aurora model kits, which were about 8 inches tall, but they were only 8 inches tall. It's hard to be frightened of something that's that small. That's why I wanted them life-size. And so the only way to do that, I had to get to know some of the makeup artists that actually worked on these movies, and that's where that aspect came in.
Well, you're a Bristol native. That's a long way from Hollywood. How did you kind of connect with these people to learn this? Because, I mean, these are magnificent.
Well, it was because of my great uncle and his connections with Hollywood. He also co-starred in a movie called Master of the World with Vincent Price. And so that's how Vincent entered into this as well. Vincent did voice tracks for The Witch's Dungeon, which you still can hear to this day.
Right.
Welcome, poor mortal, to this witch's dungeon of nightmares.
This was kind of a family affair because your whole family helped you kind of make your dream come true, didn't it?
Oh, yes. I mean, let's face it, at 13, I couldn't have done it alone. So my dad was a painting and decorating contractor. He built the original building that we had for the Witch's Dungeon. My mom was a Broadway costume designer, and she made many of the costumes for it. And then my uncle was an electrician, so I had a crew to begin with.
Well, that's great.
To start with.
That's great. This is the most unfair question. I know you've been asked it, but you had to have some favorites. I mean, there's so many great horror film, if you will, actors, Bela Lugosi, and all of them. Do you have a favorite, and why?
It's really hard to say, but with all due respect to Uncle Henry, my favorite film always was the Lon Chaney silent Phantom of the Opera, and that was because as a kid, it was the first film I had on film, and you have to realize this was before the day you put a little silver disc into a machine. These were on film, and so this was an 8mm, and way back, and that was the first complete movie I had on film. I must have ran that over and over and over again. So it became my favorite, and the makeup still, to this day, even though that was 1925 when that film was made, it has not been topped as far as the Phantom of the Opera.
When we first started back in the 60s, I mean, it was kind of a prelude to the Wax Museum, wasn't it? I mean, we have busts here and some of this, but you had full-life figures.
In the old wax museums years ago, if they said they had a chamber of horrors, it was not like Nosferatu or the Frankenstein monster. It was torture devices. And to me, that wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted to see the classic movie monsters. So since no one was doing it, I figured I should do it.
Well, and I think this is great because this is really an appreciation of an art, maybe a lost art with some people. It's not about scaring people and coming up. It's really about telling a story Granted, the characters are a little bit different, but it really is something. Tell us a little bit, because this is kind of the precursor to a lot of the great movies.
Absolutely. This is Nosferatu. It was played by an actor by the name of Max Schreck. And that was in 1922 in Germany. And this inspired a lot of other films. Even, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Salem's Lot on TV. The vampire looks almost identical to this. And he inspired, that makeup inspired a lot of others. Of course, this was before Bela Lugosi played Dracula in the films. It was about 10 years before. What we offer is something very different than what anybody else offers. It is really mainly about the movies. That's why we call it a movie museum, because as you come in our main lobby, we have original displays of actual movie props, such as this is one of the original golden idols from Raiders of the Lost Ark that was actually used in the film. There were only about 4 or 5 of them made for the movie. But we also have original props from Close Encounters, E.T., Beneath the Planet of the Apes, The Exorcist. We have had one of only 2 in existence of Linda Blair as the Exorcist. So there's a lot to see even before you take the main tour. Then the main tour is really our Wax Museum tour, and that's recreated scenes from the classic horror films.
You can't really tell it on television, but these are so lifelike. Take us through some of how this is done. I mean, this has to be real hair.
It is. It is actually real hair, and some of it is a combination of what's called yak hair. There's an animal by the name of the yak,
right.
And as a matter of fact, Henry, because he was supposed to be a werewolf, that's actually yak hair that's on him. But on Cornelius here, Roddy McDowell, that's actually real human hair that's on that.
You love this. You obviously had the connections. Why didn't you move out to Hollywood and become one of these guys?
Well, I had the opportunity one
you
time with John Chambers. He wanted me to be his assistant, but all my friends were here. I mean, I have a number of friends out in the West Coast, but I thought it would be fun to do this museum here because there's nothing like it on the East Coast. So that's how it kind of came about.
It's a reoccurring find that I see in Bristol is that people love Bristol and they don't leave. They really do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this guy. Everybody's going to know him, but this is new for this year, isn't
This
it?
is new for this year. Again, he's a recreation. That's Yoda, of course, from the film, which originally the voice and the puppeteering was done by Frank Oz, who was best known for working with Jim Henson and the Muppets. And so he's our newest recreation that's at the Witch's Dungeon this year.
Now, I know that people are watching this and it's during October, so this is the perfect time for you. Tell us a little bit about the hours of operation, how they can come see this, because I know they're going to want to see this just like I did. So, so tell us about what they can expect to see when they come, and you know, the hours and that type of thing.
Well, first of all, I should say you should go to our website because that'll have all the key information. That's www.preservehollywood.org. Preservehollywood.org.
What a great URL. Yeah.
So that is the main one you can go to for any questions. But beyond that, we're open every single weekend in October, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings, 7 p.m. till 10 p.m., including Halloween weekend. We go from Friday night straight through to Tuesday night, which is Halloween. So we'll be open every night that weekend right up to Halloween.
But you've had everybody from Elvira to Mark Hamill to Vincent Price. I mean, that's got to be gratifying. And how do those people come to you, and what do they ask you and talk to you about?
Well, I think it's because that they knew that I was related to Henry Hull, but also they have a great affection for the fact that I'm trying to preserve and bring this to new generations that, you know, with CGI now, there's not going to be anything for anybody to see as an actual object. It's all numbers.
It's a lost art now.
Yeah, so being able to see the pioneers that created all this and how it began, I think, especially for film students, this is a great place to be able to go. And also, we show films, real films. We don't show digital. We show actual movies.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, you do this through October. I know it takes months in advance, but you kind of keep this spirit up throughout the year here at the Bristol Historical Museum. Tell us a little bit about that and how people can come and actually see the real thing.
Well, every 2 weeks generally, you'd have to check with our schedule, we do run actual movies right here at the Bristol Historical Society, and it's either, sometimes we have a double feature, like the old days, or we'll have a main feature and then we'll have, say, an episode of Flash Gordon or an episode of the Three Stooges or cartoons, because we want it to feel like an old-time night at the movies. And a lot of these programs you couldn't see anywhere else.
Can you share with us what may be coming or one of the things you're sought after to try to go get for the upcoming years?
Well, we hoped that we would have had one of the original 1966 Batmobiles just for one of the weekends.
Right.
We're still hoping that'll happen, but it's so popular, especially after Adam West passed away. We're not sure if we'll have it this season, but we'll definitely have it for next season. And some of them that we're adding next year probably would be Frederick March as Mr. Hyde, and we're going to lean a little more towards science fiction, and we may do Flash Gordon and Ming the Merciless in the following year.
There's lines all the time through it, so the popularity is not dying whatsoever, is
Oh,
it?
no, we have a long line out here, but it moves faster now.
It does.
I want to say that. Don't think you have to wait for a long, long time. It moves faster because we're in a much bigger location, and we can get more people in on the tours at a time. Plus, we have 2 live tour guides, and I've been told that we're the only ones, at least in this country, that have live tour guides.
And I'll tell you what, it's worth the wait. Cortlandt, congratulations. Thank you. You certainly are a gem for Bristol, and we appreciate it.
I see you have survived this maze of monsters and nightmares. Or have you? And so until we meet again, good night.